Salutations, my friends, and thank you for tuning into another one of the mini-casts that we are starting to do. I've got to really start to figure out a way to name these between the Instagram live broadcast and the Facebook live broadcast and then these mini-casts that we do as well. I really got to start naming these so you guys can kind of catch on to the trend. But with that being said, I have titled this episode, or this mini-cast, American Fukushima, because why are we having Hurricane Irma described as a nuclear hurricane? There's been a lot of things surrounding just this event alone, as I've been trying to document on the page and on the show and in a series of mini-casts as well, that are red flags with this. So again, I have to ask the question, why are we hearing that Hurricane Irma is a nuclear hurricane? On top of that, what else is going on during Hurricane-Harvey in Texas that they're trying to sweep underneath all the flood of articles surrounding these hurricanes? We're going to be getting over that and more in this edition. So with that being said, let's jump right into it. So as I said before, the question, why is Hurricane Irma being considered a nuclear hurricane? You see, why is there so many different things surrounding these hurricanes? Why isn't this something simple? So before, and this is what's strange, before Hurricane Irma actually hit, we had Hurricane-Harvey. The devastation that it did there in Texas and Houston is untold. FEMA, they say they're going to be there for years. The administrator, Barack Long, he says they're going to be there for a while. And it's one of the most costliest disasters in U.S. history. It is crazy. One of the reasons we're doing this mini-cast is to underline the effect, or at least underline the reality, that we are indeed dealing with nuclear radiation. We're also dealing with chemicals and all kinds of other things going on. We've seen the devastation that Fukushima has caused the west coast of America, and now here at the center, so to speak, of America, we are now dealing with our own variable form of Fukushima, and I think all of this is crazy. But this article that I have before you guys is from your news wire. It says flooding crisis at Texas nuclear plant sparks new Fukushima fears, and we'll be getting into Hurricane Irma and how there's two nuclear plants right in the path of destruction that's going to explode. It's crazy. But let's get into this article. It says experts are warning that the STP nuclear plant in Texas is unprepared for the unprecedented level of flooding in the area, and claim troubled nuclear plants could become the quote new Fukushima and contaminate the entire south of the USA. Before Hurricane Harvey hit the area, STP nuclear plant officials claimed the nuclear reactor was prepared to weather the storm, with an article published in the Bay City Tribune in Texas boasting, quote, the plant site is located 10 miles inland and at an elevation of 29 feet, well above the reach of even a Category 5 storm surge. The plant was designed with watertight buildings and doors to keep emergency electricity and cooling systems fully functional. All buildings housing safety equipment are floodproof to an elevation of at least 41 feet above the mean sea level. An article in the San Antonio Current also debated the plant's safety in the wake of Fukushima and made similar points about a hurricane storm surge, but also made an important distinction about inland flooding from the Colorado River, located about 2 miles away from the plant. According to the officials, the STP nuclear plant is built to withstand a quote worst case scenario of a 100-year flood on the Colorado River. So basically they're saying, yeah, we have this taken care of, everything's okay, don't really worry. Well, if that was the case, I wouldn't be here talking about how this might not be okay, how we're dealing with the after effects and other things that are going on in our country. But what I'm trying to illustrate by getting into this article and others that I will get into, like the chemical spill in La Porte, is so that we can talk about what is leaking into the earth, what is leaking downwards, what is pooling up. You see, this is why we have FEMA and the Red Cross and the Salvation Army, other places. This is why we have them trying to advocate vaccines, why they want to try to get the RFID chips injected into you with these nano microchips, these nano injections. They're trying to offer vaccines post-Hurricane Harvey and pre-Hurricane Irma in the event that, these tetanus vaccines, in the event that they'll help protect you. They'll help boost your immune system. There's a lot of debris in this water, and you got to think, if you're getting cut by debris that's in the water, you have open skin exposed to chemicals, because people aren't really talking about what's in the water. They're really not talking about what's going on in the water. I can tell you that much. We have a few people discussing things, but this is not as big as an idea or big of a deal as it needs to be. Imagine that you get a cut along your ankle, and because you were walking in some district of the town, some area of the town, you know, it experienced some kind of fallout, so to speak. And so now you have like radioactive material leaking into a cut. That's crazy. But this is a reality. This is going to create diseases. This is going to do so much damage. But we're not done. That's the crazy part. Like I said, some of this stuff hasn't even been talked about, and we're only getting started right here. This is one that I keep going on and on about. The chemical leak emergency spurs take cover order in LaPorte, Texas. And right there you guys have the Twitters from them. The Harris County Twitter, where it says, per city of Shore Acres, chemical release notice, shelter in place, stay inside, close windows, doors, turn off air conditioning and ventilation. And then the city of Baytown says the S.B. Hartman Bridge is closed. There's a shelter in place in LaPorte for a chemical leak. We will open lanes once it's all clear. So it's obviously been all cleared since August 28th. But this is still stuff that is, as they said before, in the Harris County Twitter. This is in the air. It's in the. It can be in your air conditioning. It can be in the ventilation. It can be all over the place. All right, and this article is from Sign of the Times. I put it up August 28th. It says that a chemical leak emergency is prompting orders for LaPorte, Shore Acres, and Baytown, Texas residents to take cover and turn off their air conditioning and heating systems. This, as the Lone Star State deals with the emergency needs of the victims of Hurricane-Harvey. The chemical is a hydrogen chloride, which can cause eye, throat, and nasal irritation, according to the LaPorte police. The shelter-in-place order covers areas around state highways 146 and 225. Deer Park is not affected by the order, according to KTRK. Quote, close all doors and window and turn off heating or cooling systems. An emergency LaPorte city notice said, stay off the phone so you can receive alerts and updates from emergency officials. Harris County Homeland Security and Emergency Management issued an emergency message saying that the LaPorte Fire Department was, quote, working on a leak from a pipeline in the area of Highway 225 and Highway 146, end quote. A chemical spill at a Valero plant is the reported source of the emergency. So we're having gas spills. That's awesome. That's what we're dealing with now. We're dealing with gas spills. But again, more of this stuff that we're not talking about is how this is getting into the air, how this is pooling up with other chemicals due to the flooding. We're not also talking about all these other crazy things that we kind of see unfolding. They're letting all of this slip underneath the radar because they want to try to keep you in a state of perpetual fear. They're not talking about how a damaged Exxon facility has released toxins into Houston's floodwaters, and over a dozen more sites are at risk. This is what I'm trying to talk about. When I say American Fukushima, we haven't even gotten to the radiation plants in Florida. Okay? We are still in Texas dealing with all of these issues post-Hurricane-Harvey. This article comes from The Mind Unleashed. It is by Cassius Methel, and I put it up August 30th. It says, while up to 30% of Houston County, Harris County, is underwater, people are pointing out that Harris County has more toxic waste sites than any other county in Texas. Is that synchronistic? Is that ironic? Or is that perfectly planned? Over a dozen federal, air quotes, Superfund sites, toxic waste sites, sit in Harris County. Worse, on Tuesday, ExxonMobil reported that 2 of its refineries east of Houston as damaged by the flood, and that the damaged refineries released pollutants. It is unclear exactly what pollutants were released and how, or where they will end up. My thoughts precisely. So as you guys are seeing right here with this map, we're seeing all these red. I don't know the legend of it, and what the red means, what the orange means, what the yellow means, and things like that. But all these things are pooling up. These sites are damaged. We don't know where they'll end up. They're releasing pollutants. Other pollutants are also being released at other damaged facilities that we'll get into. And we have no real safety measure in relation to this. Okay, the article goes on to say that the flood caused several dams to spill over for the first time ever, and there are more toxic waste sites than the federal ones. The other ones are managed by the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality. The EPA released this map of high-risk areas for toxic waste sites containing flood waters. So that, as you see right there, it's only a matter of time until they all pull up in the middle of the city. And eventually they will evaporate, and then it will go through the whole process of becoming clouds, raining, and then animals actually eating stuff from where the clouds are. I think the evaporation from the ocean, from all this type of stuff, it will go up into the top of the clouds. It will create clouds. The condensation will drop down. This will also affect the biology of the planet, and all kinds of other things as well. The biology of the animals that are eating in that area as well. There's a lot of different things that this is gonna hurt. This is why this episode is called American Fukushima. This is lasting damage that we haven't even really started talking about. But to continue on, it says Houston is part of something called the Chemical Coast, with a massive chemical and petroleum industry, according to Matthew Stanislaus, who oversaw the federal Superfund program for the toxic waste sites. The EPA typically tries to identify toxic waste sites in a storm's path to shore up the active operations and minimize seepage from sites. Apparently, the EPA is failing right now. Hurricane Katrina's path hit relatively few Superfund sites, which were tested by the EPA after it struck. So what I'm trying to say by putting this out here, after talking about chemical spills in the port, after talking about the Southern Texas nuclear plant, and all these other chemical spills that we see taking place, because we're not done. We still have to talk about the Arkham, Texas plant explosion. You see, what I'm doing by trying to illustrate this stuff to you guys is saying that this is not something simple. They are trying to play it off, and this is everything but. This is American Fukushima. We're dealing with one of the hallmarks of our country, one of the better parts of our one of the hallmarks of our countries, one of the trademarks of our countries. We are now seeing it compromised by these types of things. So what does this have to do with, and I'm sure, I'll have people that are listening saying, oh, this is HARP, oh, this is geoengineering, oh, this is weather modification. Yes, precisely, you're right, but it's what we're doing in relation to this. What caused this? Why is this going on? Why was Hurricane-Harvey doing so much devastation? Why is Hurricane Irma causing so much devastation? That's why they're calling this a nuclear hurricane. They're literally spinning around all of these other chemicals around the country. We have the West Coast that's on fire right now, and then we have the East Coast that's being bombarded by tsunamis, by hurricanes, by storms, by all of this other stuff. You see, and then, like I said before, with the Arkham, Texas plant explosion, where they had the CEO that said there is no way to prevent an imminent explosion. As you guys are seeing right there, with that plume of smoke going up. And like I said, this is stuff that's going up, pollutants, toxins that are going up in the air. You see, this is something that's not going to be easy to fix. We don't have proper measures to fix all this. This is why Donald Trump is signing Hurricane-Harvey relief. You see, and there's a lot of different things that come with that as well. But let me get into this. It says that a chemical plant in Crosby, Texas, belonging to French industrial giant Arkham SA, has announced it's evacuating workers due to the risk of an explosion. After Hurricane-Harvey knocked out powers and flooding swamped its backup generators, the French company said that the situation at the plant has become serious, and said that it is working with the Department of Homeland Security in the state of Texas to set up a command post in a suitable location near our site. The plant, which produces explosive organic peroxides and ammonia, was hit by more than 40 inches of rain and has been heavily flooded, running without electricity since Sunday. And this was put up August 30th, so it's a little bit old. This is something that they're still working on containing, but are they not still trying to work on containing Fukushima? Continuing on, it says that the plant was closed since Friday, but has had a skeleton staff of about a dozen in place. Following the flood surge, the plant's backup generators also failed. The threat emerged once the company could no longer maintain refrigeration of chemicals located on the site, which have been stored at low temperatures. The plant lost cooling when backup generators were flooded, and then workers transferred products from the warehouses into diesel-powered refrigerator containers. On Tuesday afternoon, the company released a statement which admitted that, quote, refrigeration of some of our backup product storage containers has been compromised due to the extremely high water, which is unprecedented in the Cosby area. We are monitoring the temperature of each refrigeration container remotely. It then warned that while we do not believe that there is an imminent danger, the potential for a chemical reaction leading to a fire or explosion within the site confines is real. One day later, and with the torrential rains finally over, has the situation at the giant peroxide chemical plant stabilized? Unfortunately, according to Reuters, the answer is no. And the answer is no over here as well on Factions of Freedom, because what we're talking about is the effects of this. Yeah, sure, they can contain it, but when you mix these things with other chemicals, we don't know what kind of effects they have. Yes, there's explosions. Yes, there's all kinds of other byproducts going on, but it's what this all means in totality, in the aggregate, that we need to look at. There's chaos going on in Texas, and we're about to jump over here to Florida to talk about some of this insanity. But before we do, we still need to cover a few things in relation to Hurricane Harvey. Right there, from the anti-media, we have Harvey recovery, high amounts of cancer-causing chemicals found in the Houston area. On Tuesday, and this is put up September 7th. On today's date is September 8th, and this is from the anti-media. As I said before, it says, on Tuesday, health officials in Houston confirmed that the presence of high levels of carcinogen benzene in a neighborhood near the local Valero Energy refinery. So, again, more of this stuff where we were dealing with the damaged Exxon facility, where they were saying that this took place near the Valero, at a Valero site. This is another one of the things that we were talking about. In the wake of Hurricane Harvey, Houstonians who live near the city's refineries and chemical plants are concerned about their health and safety due to the possible damage and leaks. The New York Times reports that the Houston's health department has found benzene above the levels at which federal officials recommend workers wear special breathing equipment. Preliminary air sampling in the Manchester district of Houston showed concentrations of up to 324 parts per billion of benzene, said Lauren Ron, Chief Environmental Science Officer for the Houston Department of Health. Health officials also detected high levels of volatile organic compounds, which have been linked to a variety of health problems, including liver damage and cancer. So one of the things I didn't really talk about with the damaged Exxon facility, and even the Arkema, Texas plant explosion, unfortunately, because I'm just trying to get all this stuff in here, is the amount of chemicals. There's like over 32 different chemicals that are stored at the Arkema, Texas plant right now. And some of those things, due to the explosion, as I said before, they could turn into toxins, they could turn into pollutants, and those things can rise up into the air. You see, they can pool due to all this rain, these storms, and the humidity. They can pool up, turn into a literal chemical cocktail, a pool of chemicals, and then evaporate into the sky. And these are, again, some of the same chemicals that we're having to deal with this Valero Energy site, and as I said before, with the Arkema, Texas site. Some of these chemicals that are at the Arkema, Texas plant are, acetic acid, acetone, aromatic, benzoyl chloride, caustic potash, caustic soda, cumene hydroperoxide, cumene hydrogen peroxide, dimethyl hexadine, Epsom salts, hydrogen peroxide, isobutylene, isopropyl alcohol, mineral oil, sodium bicarbonate, sulfur dioxide. And I'm not going to lie to you, I'm not a chemist. I don't know what all these types of things mean, but I just know that some chemicals, when mixed together, they are unstable, and having this many different chemicals in one place is very dangerous. But let me get back into this article. It says that Manchester is a low-income minority neighborhood on the east end of Houston that was chronically dealt with the effects of industrial pollution, and that's something that we have got to mention throughout the entirety of this minicast. Industrial pollution. That's exactly what we're dealing with. Environmental damage. This is stuff that, as I keep trying to say, has lasting effects. Those stories that we hear, people who develop weird mutations, have strange things happen to them, because they live near a chemical plant. I mean, as we talk about with atrazine and how that's changing, the sexual orientation of fish, and who knows what that's going to do to us. This is industrial pollution. These are the long-term effects that we don't really even know because we're not necessarily looking at it. But the article goes on to say that because they are living, as the Times notes, Manchester is one of several areas
of Houston found to have higher levels of childhood leukemia. You know, more again more byproducts of this industrial pollution, of this waste. Many employees of the plants and residents nearly believe that the chemicals are the source of the pollution and health issues. I would agree. Now Houston is dealing with the possibility of an increase in dangerous chemicals because of the destructive flooding of Hurricane Harvey. Dr. Ron told the Times that Houston's Health Department would continue monitoring the situation. A spokesman from the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency also said that the agency would continue to test pollution levels around the Valero refinery. Environment Texas, an environmental advocacy group, reports that Houston's petrochemical refinery is shut down in preparation for Hurricane Harvey, and in the process released more than 2 million pounds of harmful chemicals in the air. 2 million pounds. Right in the air. This is, and like I said, we're not getting the information about what else is being released into the air. We're still dealing with the initial shock of all this chaos and all this stuff unfolding. But even so, because people are going to catch on. You know, again, with this industrial pollution, with the health effects and all the other bad things that are surrounding this. Police and EMTs are suing Arkema over the chemical plant fire after Harvey, and this is a article from Raw Story. It's reported by Raw Story. It is a repost from Reuters. I put it up September 7th. It says police and emergency workers filed suit on Thursday against French chemical company Arkema SA, claiming they were injured after it failed to take adequate steps to avoid a fire at its Crosby, Texas plant after Hurricane Harvey. 7 police, fire, and emergency medical technicians sued Arkema in Harris County District for at least $1 million, alleging negligence by the company and executives. Lead flammable organic peroxide stored at the site to ignite the plant lost power during the storm. Wow, this seems like there's a little bit of a spelling error somewhere in there. An Arkema spokeswoman was not immediately available for comment. The 7 emergency workers claimed they received serious bodily injuries after breathing smoke released by the fire while manning an evacuation perimeter a mile and a half away from the plant. The chemicals are used in the manufacturing of plastics. The company and its executives failed to protect chemicals adequately and did not alert the emergency workers on August 31st after some containers exploded, caught fire, and released toxic fumes, the suit said. So again, what we're dealing with is these guys literally saying, you know what, you didn't let me know that this kind of stuff was happening. I'm suing you. You basically had me breathe in toxic fumes. I had serious bodily injuries, and I don't even know if they're done yet. Arkema executives repeatedly denied that the chemicals were toxic or harmful in any manner, and the 7 emergency workers relied on the representations and suffered bodily injuries as a result, the suit alleges. In all, about 15 emergency workers outside the plant required care at the scene or were taken to a hospital and treated for smoke inhalation. Now, what happens, and this is, again, smoke inhalation of these chemicals, of these 32 different chemicals that are stored at the Arkema, Texas plant. What is that? What is that? It's like chemo, it's like cancer, it's like all kinds of different things all at once. It's crazy. And it's not just going to be, you know, oh, this guy's got the flu. No, this guy's going to suffer from some kind of radiation poison or some kind of chemical poisoning, something. You see, it says floodwaters from Harvey cut electricity feeding refrigeration units used to keep the plant's tanks of volatile organic peroxide from warming and combusting. Plant workers evacuated after moving the chemicals into 9 trailers. The Federal Chemical Safety Board has launched an investigation of the incident, and the Environmental Protection Agency has been monitoring the site for pollutants. Great. So glad that they're monitoring the site for pollutants. That's awesome. I'm glad they're actually monitoring it now, because these are things that we're going to have to deal with in the aggregate. That we're going to have to deal with even if they do not tell us. You see. So let's jump over here to Florida. Let us jump over here to Florida so we can start looking at all this craziness that's going on. As I said before, a nuclear hurricane, right? Let's look at some of the headlines in relation to in relation to this. Miami Beach mayor says that residents must leave. This is a nuclear hurricane. Military and state police escort fuel trucks. Hurricane Irma kills 10. May hit Florida Sunday as a Category 4. It's actually already turned to Category 4 today, and it's Friday. So we still have 2 more days for it to gain impact before it hits Florida. American Society of Civil Engineers warns Florida could see catastrophic flooding. Miami mayor warns people to evacuate immediately as 185 miles per hour megastorm barrels towards Florida. Barreling towards Florida. There is no way to get out of the way of that. And if you know, if you're listening to this and you live in Florida, we have a very small amount of people who listen that are in Florida. Please get yourself to higher ground. Get yourself to higher ground. Get yourself out of the state. You know, myself, actually, I have family in South Carolina. I don't want to go into too much detail, but I have family in South Carolina, and we've already got them tickets. They're already coming out here to the West. That's all I'm going to say. This is something that is very serious, and denying that definitely does nobody any good. This is something very, 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 very serious and starting to hit home. And there's a lot that's going to come with this, but I digress. We are looking at, again, Hurricane Irma being considered a nuclear hurricane, but the question is, why? Why is this a hurricane? Well, why is this being considered a nuclear hurricane? This article that comes from Freedom Outpost, it's by Michael Snyder. I put it up September 8th. It says, Irma is being described as a nuclear hurricane that has left one island practically uninhabitable. It says Hurricane Irma is not just another hurricane. It is a history-making hurricane that is going to cause up to $250 billion in damage once it makes its landfall in the United States. As I said before, one of the most costly natural disasters in history. This is going to do so much to kind of condense everything. What we're going to be seeing from here on out is nothing but Agenda 21 and Agenda 2030, where they are going to be trying to fix what happened to the coast, to the center, and we're going to be seeing other environmental things take place in the country. It's crazy. It is crazy. It's going to require a lot of money to try to fix up all of this stuff. But let me continue on to explain why this is being considered a nuclear hurricane. In fact, Miami Beach Mayor Philip Levins used the term nuclear hurricane to describe this storm to the media. I would never use that term personally, but I am in agreement that it would be exceedingly difficult to overstate the danger that this storm represents. According to the National Hurricane Center, Irma has been a Category 5 for more than 50 hours, and that is already one of the longest stretches on record. On record. It is already stronger than what we have ever recorded. It's producing some crazy outcomes. Land receding in, or not even land receding in, land being covered. You know, places being uninhabitable. Like literally water that comes up to apartment buildings. Of course, if you were to extrapolate the Sarah Simpson scale, Irma would have been considered a Category 6 storm when it had sustained winds of 185 miles per hour. And just a day later, MSNBC published an article with a suspiciously similar title saying that if there were a Category 6 hurricane, Irma would be it. Will the rest of the mainstream media attack MSNBC for saying the exact same thing that I did? Of course not. They won't do that. They won't do that. They won't do that. That's not how this works. So let me get into why, because I am kind of jumping all over the place and I don't want to rant too much for you guys. I kind of want to make this as condensed as possible, so this information can get out to others. Why are they considering this a nuclear hurricane? Because there's 2 nuclear power plants in Florida that are directly in the path of Hurricane Irma. That's why. They're not saying this for show. This is something that comes from SHTF plan. You know, when stuff hits the fan, don't say we didn't warn you. This was originally published by Michael Snyder at The American Dream. And this is put up September 7th. It says that Hurricane Irma is more powerful than all the other major Atlantic storms this year combined, and it has an eye as large as the entire Detroit metro area. It is being reported that upwards of 90% of Barbados has already been destroyed by the storm. it is being projected that some areas of Puerto Rico could be without power for between 4 and 6 months. You may want to view some of these photos and videos that people are putting up on social media and the destruction of the immense destructiveness of this very powerful very powerful storm. The latest forecasts have Hurricane Irma making landfall in Florida, but so far, the 2 nuclear power plants in Florida that would be directly in the path of the storm have not even started the process of shutting down. So whatever we were talking about the cancer-causing chemicals that are found in the Houston area, and how they were releasing more than 2,000 pounds of harmful chemicals into the air because they didn't shut down. Well, here's what we're dealing with now in Florida. In anticipation of a powerful Hurricane Irma, which projections on Wednesday showed head straight for South Florida, Florida Power and Light, 2 nuclear plants were finalizing staffing plans and cleaning up the grounds, but neither Turkey Point nor the St. Lucie plant further up the coast had made the call yet to shutting down the plants. Peter Robbins, spokesman for FPL, said shutting down a reactor is a gradual process and the decision will be made well in advance of the storm making landfall. We all remember what happened with Fukushima, and we definitely do not want to repeat the same mistakes over here on U.S. soil. Hence why we are calling this American Fukushima. I'm not even saying if these things hit. I'm saying because of what has already hit, because of the devastation that's already been laid, we're dealing with an American Fukushima. This, and I wish I found the report for you guys. This adds on to the chaos. There have been pipeline spills. There have been radiation spills in Florida as well. I wish I pulled up the article for you guys in the video, but it's because this is very important. This is going to spread out. This is going to travel along the entire country if this spreads. Like, it's massive. It's like the width of Hurricane Irma. It basically encompasses Florida. It's wild. But the Fukushima nuclear disaster changed millions of minds about the safety of nuclear power, and as a member of Congress, I will do all that I can to encourage the development of our solar power, wind power, and geothermal capabilities. And if anything, this is what we have got to highlight. They will use this event. They will use all this chaos that we see making its way, destroying the country. They will use all these different things to politicize global warming, climate change, and all of this. This is, again, as I keep trying to reiterate, Agenda 21 and 2030, to where we get away from fossil fuels, to where we get away from nuclear power, to where we get away from all these other things, and we start migrating towards solar power, wind power, and geothermal power, things that could be in alignment with sustainable development. This is the green agenda, this is the green revolution, and this is why all of this stuff is so important. American Fukushima gives them everything they need to say we need to have an entire socio-economic reformation. We need to change all of these other industrial pollutants, all this other stuff that's not economically friendly. You know, human activity on the planet is bad. We need to condemn humans. We need to condemn Texas. We need to condemn Americans. We need to stop this stuff. But let me get back into this article. And these are all the pretexts they will use for these types of things. This is a massive storm. There's a lot of implications behind all this stuff, and I don't think we've really got a full grasp on what's going to happen because it's still developing. You know, by the time most people listen to this, it will have already hit. We will begin to see some of the effects of American Fukushima and afterwards. But let me get back into this article. It says, let us hope that Hurricane Irma weakens before it gets to Florida, because the destruction that it is causing right now is off the charts. When it made landfall in Barbuda, there were some winds gusts that were above 215 miles per hour. Irma first made landfall in Barbuda, and an island with a population of 1,600 around 1:47 a.m. Eastern time Wednesday. Local weather stations there captured wind gusts of 155 miles an hour before going silent, indicating the instruments had been blown away. Irma sustained winds have been reported at 185 miles per hour, with gusts above 215 miles per hour. So we're dealing with nuclear plants literally in the path of these 215 miles per hour situations, and they're not done. We're not even talking about Hurricane Jose that's coming up on the rear. It's trying to make its way right through Florida, over Georgia, into South Carolina, a little bit of North Carolina, some of Tennessee and Kentucky and Virginia. And all of that is just going to come traveling this way, traveling towards America, or no, all of this is America, traveling across country. You see, and I know this is some stuff that people really don't want to look at. They don't want to think about it. They want to think that it could be as big or as influential as it is. But there's a lot of stuff at play here. This isn't something simple. They're trying to spread this chaos. They're trying to create lasting effects. This is real geoengineering. This is weather modification. And let's see if we can play this clip for you guys where we have Michio Kaku saying that indeed weather control is possible.
And researchers are looking at how to change the weather on purpose. That's right. Lasers now could one day manipulate rain and lightning. CBS This Morning contributor Michio Kaku is a physics professor at City College of New York. Professor, nice to see you. Extraordinary seeing Al Gore and Bill Clinton there together with Charlie, wasn't it?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, they did not get into this discussion,
no.
though. But it is fascinating. I mean, lasers, really, to change the weather?
That's right. Well, as Mark Twain once famously said, everyone complains about the weather, but no one ever does anything about it. Well, instead of doing a rain dance, we physicists are firing trillion-watt lasers into the sky to actually precipitate rain clouds and actually bring down lightning bolts. This is potentially a game changer.
But this is experimental.
It's experimental. However, in the laboratory so far it works. When you have water vapor and you have dust particles or ice crystals, you can precipitate rain. It condenses around the seeds. These
and researchers are looking at how to change the weather.
So let's see if we
on
can try to
purpose.
get up
That's
another
right.
clip for you guys where outside of practicality, thank you, Dr. Michio Kaku, outside of practicality, we know that they've been doing this for decades. Let's see if we can find that clip with George Bomar where he's talking about just that, because weather modification is something that this is a tool that they have. That's why when looking at climate change, global warming, Agenda 2030, and all this other stuff, you got to ask the question, well, what is climate change? Because these guys, they have the abilities to do so. They have the abilities to change climate, to modify the weather. So what is that? But right here, we have George Bomar, who's admitting that weather modification in Texas using cloud seeding is effective. And this is an interview in 2011.
This summer?
This summer.
You succeeded in increasing rainfall?
South of San Antonio, we had aircraft flying on a dozen days in the month of July, treating what we deemed to be seedable storms.
And what was the result of that?
The same result that we've seen since it started in 1997. Some clouds respond very well. Some clouds respond only to a limited degree. Maybe one or two instances when clouds didn't respond as we had hoped, probably because we got to them too late.
And when you say they responded very well, what does that mean?
It means that the storm lived longer and produced more rain over a larger area.
And how do we know that it did that? I mean, what if you hadn't seeded? I mean,
good question.
This summer?
This summer.
You succeeded in increasing rainfall?
Well, the hurricane would probably be normal if they didn't seed it. I'm just going to throw that out there. That's my 2 cents on the matter. You know, it'd probably just go about its business and, you know, not not be causing all this chaos if they did not seed it. And, you know, this is for 2011, but I'm just trying to, you know, make a bridge between then and now. This would not be happening if they did not have the capabilities to do so. Weather modification to these people is something that they need. And so imagine that. Imagine literally being able to steer a hurricane that causes $250 billion of damage, where it's got all kinds of other chemicals in it, pollutants, toxins, blah, 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 and everything else. Imagine being able to steer that just up the coast of the country. Get all those people out. What happens if this was over there in California? It would probably be submerged. You see? I'm not even talking about the forces of nature law. I'm not talking about all these other crazy things that are going on. I'm trying to simply illustrate the idea that we are living in a time to where this hurricane is causing more damage than we think. Hurricane Irma, Hurricane-Harvey, and subsequently Hurricane Jose that we will have to deal with All these things are causing problems that we have yet to have solutions for. There's no protocol for dealing with chemicals like this. There's no protocol for dealing with this much devastation. There's no protocol with literally leaving an island uninhabitable. This is what they want to do. They want to try to get people to migrate to population centers to where they can be easily more controllable. But that's for an entirely different discussion. What I'm trying to illustrate by talking about this type of stuff, the American Fukushima concept, all these chemicals, these different plants that are exploding, and everything else is how this is going to create problems for us. Mostly like with Chernobyl and Fukushima, these places were uninhabitable. What happens whenever people go through with Geiger counters? They start, going off the charts. They can see how much dormant radiation's in the area. You can't go there because, well, there's been chemicals in everything, in the plants, in the ground, on the cars, in the house, in the wood, everywhere, leaving places practically uninhabitable. And that is the kind of devastation that we're dealing with. This isn't something simple. This is the true byproduct of weather modification, of geoengineering. Things are only going to get vastly more crazy as they unfold, and it's wild to think about. It is wild to think about. There's a lot of different things that I wanted to cover in this, but I think I covered a decent amount to illustrate to you guys that we're not just dealing with simple lightning storms, simple hurricanes. This is much more. This is a full frontal assault. We are being caked in it. We are being covered in all of this chaos. These natural disasters are something that we can't really, who can prepare for these types of things? All we can do afterwards is pick up the pieces and rebuild. We saw that Hurricane-Harvey made people unite and come together and put this racist bullcrap aside. But they will figure out a way to politicize this, I'm sure. This is why you have people like Neil deGrasse Tyson coming out saying, death to climate change deniers. This is why you have people trying to already politicize this event. That's not how this works. This is something that affects us all. And these people who have the capabilities of geoengineering, of weather modification, they're using it for nefarious purposes. There's so many different angles that this all coalesces to that it gets kind of wild, trying to wrap our head around it. But to people who are listening now and in the future, or really just now, please be safe. If you were in the area, if you were in the track area of this, you see yourself being a part of all this, please get yourself to a higher ground. Please get yourself and loved ones to not to these FEMA camp shelters, but to somewhere that is safe. Please take care of yourself. Be safe out there. Don't get caught in these waters. Don't get caught with your pants down. If America needed any more reasons to buy storable food, insurance you can eat, learning to be more survivalistic minded, to be more self-sustained and more independent, travel lightweight, this is it. This shows how fragile society really is, how lightweight things really are. And if we keep trying to act like this isn't the case, if we keep trying to act like civilization can't be literally washed away because they have the capabilities of things like geoengineering and weather modification, if this doesn't show you the fragility of society, I don't know what will. We have got to learn to protect ourselves and also at the same time help ensure the safety of others. This crazy storm is bringing so much out of everyone. It is testing so many people on so many fronts. This isn't something simple, and I wanted to illustrate that with this mini cast. However, that's all I really have for you guys. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. I'll have it in the description bar below. Or leave us a voicemail. We got ourselves a new number. We're always trying to make stuff up. Got ourselves a new number, and I will put that down there below. I haven't figured out a cool way to say it. But a lot of different things are in the mix, guys, really. And Season 5 is it's already starting off wild. And we're seeing what's happening with the world and everything else that is coming with it. But we will advance in the face of adversity. That's all we can really do. We can't shrink to all these things that are going on. We have to rise to the occasion. But like I said, that's all I really have for you guys. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. I'll have it in the description bar below. And as always, guys, stay vigilant, expose lies, and share truth. This is Noise Era. Freedom Faction, out.